just for everybody watching, I just have to make a disclaimer, which is that um, Ione is literally one of the friends I've had the longest since I'm 19 years old. And so we have a lot of history.
I know. I'll never forget when I first met you and you had Atlanta in your arms and she was like a baby and it was just the cutest thing. It was so fun in Laurel
Oh,
Canyon.
yeah, right. Back in the day. Hey, are you on your Wi-Fi? Because your picture isn't great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just yet another thing. I am. Maybe I am on the Wi-Fi, but maybe
Okay,
I
that's
don't know.
okay.
I'm too scared to shut the thing and open it
Yeah,
up
let's
again.
not do that. Let's not do that.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
okay, so we have to remember that we're streaming live, and so
Yeah.
we mustn't say anything because we are such good old friends. We might
Sure, of
forget and think
course.
we're on a
No.
FaceTime, and then we're going to
No, no,
start
no, no,
talking
no.
about stuff
I
that
won't
like
forget.
and I will save my Ione stories for some stories for my book.
Are you good? Yeah. No, I'm doing a press tour, so I'm well aware of being, honest, but you know what I'm
But
saying.
not too honest.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so hold on one second. I'm just going to share this link with everybody so that we can share it out to all the platforms to let people know that we are on live.
Hmm.
This is a whole new experience for me. Um, and I was just saying that like it reminds me of like hosting live TV in the UK when it was so crazy and you'd literally go live to like millions of people from literally like a closet, like, I'm in
Yeah.
my garage.
Yeah.
Okay, Ione Pony. Um, I cannot believe your book is out because it feels like it was not that long ago that you were writing it.
I
Is
know.
this a fast turnaround or am I just like behind on time?
Well, from proposal till now, it's like 3 years.
But you were writing it. I mean, I was talking to you when you were writing it.
Yeah, and well, the fast turnaround part is while you're finishing up the last edits, you're starting to prepare to put it out at the same time. So maybe the fast turnaround part just feels like you're still sort of doing the last edits right before it kind of comes out. But
Yeah.
it takes about 3 years from the way beginning until it comes out.
Wow. Well, I am curious, why you wanted to write a book. Because
Well,
it's such a laborious, it's a hard
oh,
process, it's
I know.
exhausting. I mean, with my book, it's messy. I was like, I am never writing another book. And I am writing another book. So
Right.
it's like childbirth where you kind of forget how brutal it is.
Yes.
You're like, yep, gonna do it again.
I know. I can imagine it's like that. That's because while I was doing it, so much work, but I was in it and I loved it. But then I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't know if I could ever do that again. That was so much work. But yeah, there is like just a sort of interest in me in a short period of time. And I literally just thought maybe I'll just ask my, whatever, my manager to see if someone would be interested. But I like was just totally gonna let it go if there was no momentum. And if like not the right people, I wanted to do it like legit. Like Jenna Malone, who's a friend maybe of yours too, she said, "Why don't you just self-publish?" Because she's like that. And I was like, "No, not for this. Like, I will do my own short film. I'll pay for a music video for a friend." But I was like, "This, I need all the people helping, the publisher, blah blah." So anyway, but the people, the nicest, greatest people came around, and so it felt like, as long as I felt supported in that way, then I was like, "This feels good."
Good. I'm
To
really
do.
pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
Did you how was it for you deciding what to put in and what to keep out? Because I know for me there were stories that I decided in my book like I am never telling that
Yeah.
story, Mostly because, it wasn't fair to like there was someone else involved and I didn't want to expose them in some way. But how did you decide what stories to tell and which ones to hold back?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of like overwriting, and I just wrote, so much stuff that got cut just to get it out. But for sure, like you, I don't want to take anyone down. I'm not particularly a bitter person. I don't fortunately have a big revealing story that I need to take someone, whatever. I just don't. And that's not my personality. So I just kind of knew, like at this point, I just trust myself that I know that. And a couple of things I ran by people, like our mutual friend Alice Temple. I gave her the book and said, are you comfortable with the stuff I'm saying? Anthony Kiedis had a lot of stuff already, so a lot of stuff that's in there already. I felt good about, but naturally, there's a few things that I was still. I'm my dad is actually being really nice, but I was very concerned about my father. I never ever wanted to speak badly about my father, but the truth was the truth. So it's kind of hard to get around that my father wasn't around, So I kind of but it was my point of view. It's like my feelings about these people. And so, I'm a nice person, but it was mainly just like what I was going through. But I definitely don't want to hurt people. And there's so many stories, obviously, that you could hurt so many people if you wanted. But why? Why? If you can tell a great story, like why would you have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, the people who were involved, or who I told stories about, I definitely went to those people with my book and read it to them. Like, with Keanu, I read him what I was saying about him. Was he comfortable with that? Um, and I did that with a couple of people. Were there people that you went to and you said, "Look, here's what I'm saying about you. Is that okay for you?"
Yeah, yeah, I did that with yeah, quite a few people. I did that with yeah, like I said, Alice and Amy and my friend Karis Jagger and my mom and my brother. Um, who else? Some people from childhood. You sort of, not to break the mystique, but you change a few names here and there just because that's like for protecting their privacy. And the stories weren't even that bad, but that's what when the legal
Oh
department goes
yeah.
through it, they're like, just change the name of this boy that you were with in high school or whatever. But yeah, I went to a lot of people, and it's funny, the things that they wanted to change were not the things I thought. Like
Oh,
Dave,
interesting.
David Neto comes across kind of not the nicest, and the thing he wanted to change was like being compared to a certain old-fashioned movie star, that he was like, oh, I don't, it just was so funny.
Interesting. You're like,
I
that's a
know.
compliment.
I know. And then my mom just wanted to change her age when she was with my stepfather. She was like, I don't want to sound like I was so much older. And I was like, looked it up, and I was like, well, you were that age, but it's fine. But it was just like most people were cool. I took one thing out, kind of about Karis and Mick. It was just one line to protect Mick Jagger a little bit. It was nothing bad at all. But it just is, even things that are just like could be potentially just a tiny bit embarrassing or a tiny bit hurtful. Like, I don't know. Just so I ran that by Karis, and I was like, should I take this out? And she was like, yeah, take that bit out.
It's so interesting, isn't it? In like retelling our stories, and like you said, it's your feelings about those experiences. But ultimately, when we're putting stuff out in the public domain, and they involve other people, there is such a sensibility that needs to happen because those are the things that people will pick up on. And,
Yeah,
I was looking through the press coverage, and you've had some incredible coverage on your book, which is so encouraging because I sort of wonder, like, do people even like read anymore
I
outside of like
know.
Instagram captions? But
Yeah.
I found it interesting that similar to my experience in the world, which is that the media focuses on the famous men that
I,
you were connected to. I have always found that frustrating for me. It's like,
Yeah.
really? In 2025, are we still defining a woman's narrative by the men she's been connected to, whether either
Yeah.
but born to her parent or had sex with or dated or been in love with or married to? Like, that does not need to be the leading narrative. And yet I can see it across all your press as well. That's the leading
Oh,
narrative.
yeah. I know, it's so crazy. I know, it's kinda sad sad because then I, like, squeeze in this part of, this was the year that I worked with these great directors like Tamra Davis, Allison Anders, and Penelope Spheres, and it's just honestly, like, 2 paragraphs of working with great women, and because my story is so much about chasing men, but but the whole point, I would hope, is that I'm gaining confidence. It was very illuminating that I defined myself so much about who I was dating. But yeah, the press is really what they pull out is sensational. But you're right. They focusing on who you slept with and the men and whatever. It's terrible. It's
Yeah,
awful.
and it's also like, the clickbaity things. It's like,
Yeah.
the message of your book and your narrative as a woman. I mean, you, like you said, you were working with women directors before it was a thing. That was
Yeah.
part of what you did. I was the lead in your short film.
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, you were directing before women directors was, something that people even were mindful, the fact that there weren't that many that were getting hired. You've been kind of at the forefront, and you've been at the forefront of advocating for women and yourself long before it was a thing. It's just built into who you are. And I felt frustrated at not seeing that narrative more centered.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I know, that is frustrating. Well, thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's so yeah, because it is such a long, I mean, the word journey is the best to describe it, but a journey to kind of realizing how amazing we are and what we've done
Yeah, right?
forever. Like, we didn't just all of a sudden start doing it, but for such a long time, we've been
Yeah.
doing whatever stuff in a quote unquote man's world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but what I will say is that, your Keanu story was so very Keanu. And he, you talked about him rejecting your sexual advances in
Yeah.
such a gentlemanly, compassionate way. And that is
Yes.
just so him.
I know. It's so he's so, so, so sweet. And I was thinking about, like, I bet a couple of other people will relate to that, including, well, you had whatever, more of a thing. But yeah, I think that was really sweet. He is such a gentleman, and that's such a good example for that at time.
Right?
Somebody who just like has a radar. And I'm happy at the end of the day because I thought I was ready for more than I was.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he's probably one of the very few people who said you're too young.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know I mean,
Yeah.
it's rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, where have we cross pollinated, and I'm not going to go into where we have.
Right.
um, but you said that a large part of this book is there is the narrative of chasing men, and I'm wondering, whether you feel like the book shows your progression to developing a different relationship to that part of yourself.
Yes, it does, but like in the 11th hour, because I was like born to be a rock wife, or so I thought. Like, I just love being a rock wife. That's what I thought, but I also had a career and I was doing my career. It wasn't like I didn't do my career. But for whatever reason, I loved being around musicians and their creativity, and I could have toured forever with them. And but there was this point when I was with my new husband, Ben Lee, where I really could feel that voice inside. If I was sitting around the studio too long or following him on tour, I just would start feeling like, what am I doing? This is like,
Yeah, what
dude,
about
you're,
me?
yeah. And so I think I ignored that and I would just, warm my hands by the fire of them. So I definitely in my late 30s, I started just feeling like ick, like almost when you're at a friend's house when you're a kid and you're not liking the vibe, and you're like, I kind of want to go home. The home was, I need to do what I want to do. Like, it's fine to visit the studio, it's fine to visit on tour, whatever, but not like give up my things
Yeah,
just
and
to
your
hide.
identity.
Yeah, just to like be in, because it feels like it's satisfying you. I felt satisfied, but it was, great, but it was just too much. I skipped out on quite a bit of my own thing here and there
Do you
with
feel
the
that? Do
other
you feel like
things.
you didn't take opportunities and you weren't focused on yourself? I think you said,
Yeah,
I loved what you said about like if you had put as much energy into your career, you would have been like Reese or somebody. But,
yeah. Yeah.
like that's kind of sad to
I
think
know it
that.
is sad, but I did start finally doing that not that long ago, but it's never too late, but I understand, I have an understanding of why. Also, I had a lot of fame and pressure at a young age. You were working and stuff too. So I do think part of the hiding out was like the inability to deal with the pressure. I never understood when people said, "Oh, so much pressure," and like, what do you mean? It's so fun doing movies, and but now I realize there was pressure. So I think hiding out from the world. When I got married at 21, I was just like, let me just hide out and be married. Like
Oh
just be
my, same as
cozy.
me. That's how I was.
Yeah,
When you're famous young, it is a pressure and you don't have the internal scaffolding to be able to process that and integrate it in a healthy way. I got married to John at 19 and had Atlanta and was like, yeah, I'm done with being famous. I just want to be a mom and a wife and not have to deal with that because it is a huge pressure
yeah,
for a young
yeah.
person without the skills.
I know. And at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I was doing that necessarily. I just know I felt cozy and safe, being married. But then I was too young. That was like college age where you're kind of people are just out and about experimenting and living their life. So trying to be married at a young age, that turned out to be not, I wasn't able to do the proper marriage at that age in the end. But yeah, now I feel like well, also my husband is so supportive. Even if I was trying to hide out, he's just always like, trying to whatever, support whatever I'm doing, to the point where people are like online calling him a simp or something. I'm like, a man is a simp for being supportive of his wife. It's so funny, but he's just like, great, go. I don't know. It's like
But I
so
think,
funny
look,
how
I think I will
men
never
are
forget.
threatened.
I think, look, I remember when you were making your short film. What was it called? The one I was in?
Bed Bath and Beyond.
Bed Bath and Beyond. That's sorry, perimenopause moment right there.
That
Um,
was so
but like,
weird.
I remember making that film, and you, Roman, Sophia, Spike, Adam, everyone was helping this film that you were making. And I remember Adam was the boom guy. Someone had found a wheelchair on Hollywood Boulevard, and that was the dolly. Do you remember that? Like
Yes.
someone was getting, was it
And I think
Sophia?
it was Andrew Durham. I just am going to shout him out because if he sees this, he'll be like, yeah, Andrew Durham, it was me. Yes.
That's true. And wonderful Andrew. But I remember Adam was the boom guy and he had a mic taped to a broomstick
Yes.
and he was our boom guy. But I
Right.
think I mean it's interesting. So you don't feel that you could have been supported in the same way to have a career at that time?
Well, I think I do think I pick nice men. I feel like you do too. Like my instinct was good. Anthony Kiedis, different sort of scenario, but in his own way, supportive. But yeah, Adam was very supportive, and Ben is. But I don't think I was supportive of myself. I think at that
Right.
time I did a lot, and it's amazing because I still had a pretty good career, but I had such a push pull. So I think I just was very, I was still very insecure and all of that back then. So now I can like, whatever, I'm more secure.
I'm so happy to hear that. Um, you said something that really um, resonated with me, which was writing this book made you realize that you're not great with loss or grieving your past, and that you don't want the past or your stories to control you in a heavy way, and you wanted to be attached to your life now. And I wondered if you could speak about that and what you meant when you said that.
Yeah, I think, well, with the loss of, the obvious ones, people who died, or the death of a marriage like Adam, was really hard. I mean, now it's in an appropriate place in my life where I can look back and see it and be appreciative that it was an amazing time, and it really did. We helped each other back then when we were married. But I couldn't let go of the loss of Adam. And it wasn't even that I wanted to get back together. I just, something about it, I think it was such a savior. He was such a savior at the time. I couldn't let go of the feeling that he had saved me. So it was very hard. And I do have a hard time with, like, I can't watch um, movies with River Phoenix easily, whatever. I guess that's hard for everybody. And so, also with grief and when life is hard, I just think it's hard to attach to life because it's hard to just trust and feel like we have hope and stuff. So, I'm doing that. I'm trying to really do that. When I met Ben, all I did with my friends, we only talked about the 80s and the 90s and the 80s and the 90s. And finally he was like, "Oh my God, I don't care about this." And I was like, "What? You don't care about it?" He was like, "I want to live now. I want to do fun things now. I want to be here now." And it took me a second to really, it was like those football heroes that they just like only talk about when they're football heroes and they're not in their marriage or in their moment. So I kind of snapped out of it. But I think it was like a defense just to keep being nostalgic and romanticizing the past. But grief and loss, putting it in its right place where you are grateful for it, you feel sad, but it's not this awful feeling that, like, if only I could fix something, or I don't know. It really hung over me. And the
Well, it,
Adam part, it wasn't even Adam. There was just something about it that represented something.
well, it's interesting what you said. It was the feeling you had when you were with him of safety, that
Yeah.
cozy feeling, you know? And I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I had that, you were so young. I spent a lot of time around with you and Adam at that time, like you were my hang, so I was
Yeah.
around you guys a lot. And similar to me and John, it was like you said, you were born to be a rock star wife. I mean, I've been that since I'm 16 years old, and I feel like I'm finally, over feeling like that's something I need to do. Like it is, I've got it, got the t-shirt, done. You know what I mean? Like it is not. And I guess what I'm saying is like the feeling that you had is I relate to that feeling. It's a safety, especially with a man that you didn't have growing up, I didn't have growing up, and so there is almost like a paternal protection, a feeling of safety that I can rest here and I'll be taken care of. And the horrible thing that I've realized growing up is that I have to give that to myself.
Hmm.
It's an awful reality
I
because
know.
I would love to be able to
I
get it from someone.
know. Yeah.
It sucks.
I know.
That's like adulting, is
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that cozy feeling you had with Adam or that I had in with my partners, as adults, like we're grown-ups. We've been
Yeah.
doing this a long time. We have to give that to ourselves, and that is the journey, right? How do you do that in practical terms? It's
Yeah.
so less much, it's so not as exciting, it's not as sexy, it's not as fun. There's a lot of processing, really intense emotions, and I kind of miss the lightness and the fun that we had.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think it means like knowing I can be alone. Like this is the past 2 years of really the first time I've been living in Australia, and while I'm there, I'm like, movies are coming through. Like, I just did this movie Anaconda where I played Jack Black's wife, which was adorable. It's coming out Christmas, this
Oh
movie
my God.
Anaconda. What but so that's been so amazing because I'm just so happy that jobs still come. But I did another thing and I was in Melbourne because I've been living in Sydney and I was alone and I was like, "Oh my God, I love being alone. I can do that." So and being on this trip doing the tour for the book. I used to, even when I was with Ben, when he would go on tour, I would literally like have a nervous breakdown or like a mentee bee, as the Aussies say. And I didn't know how to take care of myself emotionally, meaning I just was so codependent basically with him. And so now I don't know. I just trust, like, if I am anxious in the middle of the night, I'll wake up in the morning. It'll be fine. I'll be okay. Like, I think I just didn't believe I could be okay. Like I could, when things got tricky, or I felt despair, or any feeling I didn't like, or I was around someone I was uncomfortable, whatever it is. Now it's like I just, finally they say when you get older, I feel like I can take myself through this and it'll be okay.
Yeah,
But
you've
that,
got the tools to do that.
yeah, just it'll, like, I know with the wisdom, like, that it will pass and I will be okay. But I don't know, I glommed onto other people. And then in a bigger picture, like you're saying too, about just taking care of your life on the whole and financially, and just relying on someone else, just believing that, we can be okay. I can be okay in that way too.
Did you have periods of time when you was like, I think you, like me, have not had a lot of time when you were single. Like, I was thinking about it. I was married to John. I was with John at 17 to 22. That's when I got sober. I had a couple of years, some Keanu time, and then into Nick. So it's like I didn't really have years where I was single. I've been in a pretty committed relationship with somebody since I'm 16. And I was wondering if, you've had periods of being single, or have you just been in relationships the whole time?
I mean, when I was single, like, I lived in New York after Adam and I broke up, and that was great. I was in New York for a couple of years in my 20s, which, it's such a nice thing, to be able to live in New York.
Oh, I was around.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, so because you're young, that thing, like, New York's for the young or the very rich. It was like I got to do the New York at a young. It wasn't the most amazing time in New York in the whole wide world, but I didn't care, meaning for clubs, I guess. But that was when I was alone, but I was dating up a store. Not dating, but I was having, relationships. So I never did that, like, not seeing anybody. I was always kind of, but I had a few periods, and I look back like so fondly on them, because although I was felt like in a new landscape, what's going on, I look back fondly, like, wow, I was with myself. So
Mm,
it is kind of special, even though at the time you feel like untethered. But yeah, I've only done that a little bit.
yeah, yeah. You were the first person that I was close to that dated women. And, in England, I don't know why, I just didn't grow up around lesbians. I just
Yeah.
didn't. It was like, I don't know. I mean, I do know why. I know that because culturally, it was really difficult for women to, express themselves sexually, especially in the UK, which is so patriarchal. But when I got to the States when I was 19, and then when I was around you, you were literally, even though I was friends with Alice and people like that, but you were my first very close person who dated women, and that was kind of my introduction to queer community was you. So thanks.
Amazing. Amazing. I know, it's funny. Growing up, I also had my mom had so many gay men friends
Yeah.
that I never met. I just never met a gay woman growing up. I just was almost a little nervous about what would they be like if I met one. But yeah, the 90s, it just, once Madonna, Sandra Bernhardt, like, all of a sudden it was before L Word, but all of a sudden it was just like all these models with other butch models, all the, all those like beautiful butch models really, they did well because all of the straight women were like, wow, you're kind of like a boy, but gorgeous and amazing.
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, do you feel like, how do you identify sexually? How do you consider yourself?
I consider myself bisexual just because I've had the ability not only to be attracted to women but also fall for them, and have the one time I had like a girlfriend, I felt the feelings that I felt for like men. It felt like, oh, okay, this feels
Was that
like,
Mei Lee?
yeah, Mei Lee. And I mean, even though Sam Ronson and I never really dated, but just, I mean, we dated, but we didn't really, weren't girlfriends. But that felt like I could imagine, oh, yeah, we would just be a couple if we did. So I could do that. But I'm more, if there's a spectrum, I'm more straight because I just end up, even when I was with a woman, after a while, although I could feel like we were a couple, I would just start thinking, I think I'm more straight than gay, but that means I'm bisexual nonetheless.
Right. How does that work in your marriage?
I don't know if it's just, honestly, we just incorporate it in our like I'm really like a good forum section writer. Like when we're fooling around and stuff, I can give a good story. So he loves
Oh my
like,
God, really?
I mean,
That
like
doesn't
if we're,
surprise me.
yeah, like we'll talk and I'll do like a scenario for him. But at
Like a
this
role play.
point, yeah, little like, we'll like, what if someone was watching us and she was really hot? Like whatever. We'll sort of do that in our sex life, like I'll talk. But I don't know if I'm just, it's been a long time, but I'm just like digging just being married and with him, and I haven't felt like I really need to be with a woman. So, I mean, if that happens, I'll cross that line. But I don't feel like, oh no, because sounds like hard. Like, what do you do if that's inside of you? But so far, it hasn't been like it for me. It's not been like I'm hurt. I don't feel like I'm turning something down inside of me.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. That's important.
At
What
this
is it?
point, but in my 20s, I would have. In my 20s, I was like,
Yeah,
I would.
I remember that. I remember
Yeah.
after when you separated from Adam, that was sort of the direction
Yeah.
that you were going in. What is it called when you're attracted to the person, not the gender?
Oh yeah, maybe that's what I am. I don't remember what that's
I
called.
don't either, but I kind of love that concept of
Yeah.
just it's about the person as opposed to,
Yes.
you know, the gender, like who they are as a
Yeah,
person.
that's sort of what it is. Yeah, because it's not like I'm like an astronaut.
Pansexual. Thank you,
Yeah.
Steph. Steph is saying
Okay.
pansexual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm not. Yeah, it's not like I need boobs. I need whatever. It's just like if I really like someone and they happen to have boobs, I guess I'm like, great. I don't know.
I think if I had grown up around more fluid sexuality, I would be more like that. I would be more pansexual. I mean, I don't know because I've been, I've only dealt with dick for so long that I've got no idea at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
But like,
yeah.
but except for my one story, which I will save for my book. Um, but
Excellent.
yeah, but I think I would be more like that about who the person is, the qualities of the person.
Yeah, I believe me because I was, in therapy on and off so much in my life. And I would, talk to my therapist and wonder what is this? Where's this coming from? Like, and I can never, sexuality is so mysterious. It's very hard. I guess that's why there's so many like gender study classes and people are just trying to crack it. Like what makes, I don't know. I was like, do I love my mom so much or I just couldn't I just couldn't figure out why I had that. But yeah, it's interesting.
So you didn't come to a conclusion on that. It was just accepting that's just how I feel.
I mean, I thought maybe men. I mean, I know that's probably a touchy subject, but I was like, did I just have bad experiences at first, or I had sex too young, or? But then you can't really land on anything because then there's like so many people who had the similar thing, but they didn't date women. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, I
you
think you were
know,
probably sexualized young. You and I have that in common, that we were public people young. And also, you are one of the most beautiful, feminine, I mean, just luscious women. And some of my favorite nudes I have ever done in my life are of you. You've always been such a good sport when I'd be like, "Can you come over? And I want to take some nudes of you." And you always really was so gracious and generous with my photography concepts. When I was learning to be a photographer, I would practice on you. And some of the most amazing boobs I've ever seen are yours.
uh, oh my God. Well, I love your photography and I trust you as a person and your art. And you know when you trust someone's art and then especially the person, I would like all for it. I know my kids like my daughter, my 15-year-old jokes that I'm a nudist and I'm like, I'm not a nudist. I lie in the sun in the backyard naked. But then my friends are like, you are. So it's not like I walk around nude, but it's for someone who's been insecure about my body, still deal with that. I also am like kind of a hippie or something because
Oh, you're
even though
such a
I'm,
hippie.
I know. So I think that's part of it. Even though I'm like, of course, there's parts of my body I like, there's parts I don't. I guess I have that side to me. I don't know why. Maybe, well, my mom is
Are
maybe
you
a little.
kidding? You grew up with Enid in
I know.
Laurel Canyon. I mean,
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
a girl of the canyon,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny. I love your photography though. Back to that. That's really good. Yeah, that's so funny. To have a perception, I perceive myself as like modest and I'm like there my daughter's like, "No, you're not modest."
Oh my God, Atlanta used to say to me, like, can you please put clothes on? If I'm having a play date after school,
Yes,
like,
that's so
can you
funny.
please? Like, this is
Yeah.
embarrassing. I was like, hey, I'm just naked outside or whatever. I'm the same way.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm going from the bathroom to my bedroom, I may have a towel around my waist, but I'm not gonna like put on a full robe and the whole thing.
I
Anyway.
mean, by the way, okay, let's just talk about motherhood for a minute because you have daughters. I have, Atlanta, Ella, and Sylvan. I have one son and two daughters. I know for me, parenting daughters when, I had such a tumultuous young adult life, it has been very interesting to not want to repeat the same things that I experienced. And I'm wondering how your upbringing and your experience as a young woman has affected your parenting, especially daughters.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very aware of the boundary thing. Like, for example, Goldie had a friendship, and the boy was just a bit, he was going through a lot personally, and he was talking to her on the phone a lot, and it was kind of getting heavy. So then I was like, look, this is like not your job. You're at the time, what was she like, 14? This guy is sweet, I care about this kid, he's great, but you're not a therapist, you're not a parent. So there's that kind of thing. Both my kids have had that a little bit with friends who are like going through a hard time and just troubled a little in a certain way. And just like, that whole thing of like, if something's big, you have to tell a grown up so they can
Yes.
come in. And it's fine to talk and be supportive, but not to a certain extent. And they're both so far pretty amazing with their dating. As my older one's dating more because she's older. They're not like sitting by the phone
They're
like
not
I
like we
was.
were. They
Yeah,
really
so it's
aren't. Like,
amazing. And I don't know
thank
if it's because
God.
of me. I just don't know if it's a generational thing.
I think it's probably a bit of both. I mean, generationally, Gen Z are having less sex than any other generation. I mean, Ella, my younger daughter, is 18. I was pregnant with with Atlanta at that age. I look at
Mhm.
her and I think, how the fuck was that possible? But we were different. I'd been hosting live TV for years at that point. You and I both had accelerated, teen years, whereas our kids don't have that. They've had more
Yeah.
of an appropriate trajectory and growth.
Yeah, being like kids more and not being, yeah, we were out and about like and, working and just feeling sophisticated and going out, and the nightclubs had older people, so you sort of think you're, even though I wasn't like going out with the older people, but just you're sort of like hanging out with them in the nightclub and you're like, oh, I guess we're the same category of but really you're just a kid. Yeah, and our kids now, it's true, they're yeah, to the point like my younger one, I'm like, is she maturing fast enough? But
Same,
then I'm like, this is
same.
good though, I think. I think it's good.
But then they can go the other way where you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, okay, what, like, come on, we need to like
Get
move
out and
along a bit.
about, interact.
I was thinking about how like we were the last generation that got to like go out in the world without social media, right? So I
Yeah,
think there was a freedom and there was a
yeah,
lack of self-consciousness because we were like our kids know that absolutely anything can be documented and shared. And
yeah,
we're the last generation that didn't have that.
yeah,
So can you imagine? We just had like, for us, I know I had like paparazzi and tabloids. That was my concern. But if
yeah,
I was in your house or I was in a club, I did not have to worry. I could
yeah.
let
No,
rip.
it's so true. I know. I know. And it's funny, like even you were the beginning of the paparazzi stuff, because even I kind of didn't even really have that myself much, So that, yeah, it was just like if you were on a red carpet or, yeah, you didn't really have to worry about it. I know it's so self-conscious now, and
Yeah, and I think
they have to look good all the time. Like we could just be ourselves and we wanted to look good and like dress up for each other, but it wasn't like to the extent where other people are seeing it. It's like if I want to look fun for my friends when we go to each other's houses, fine. But you're not thinking, and maybe a bunch of other people will see this online. So then what am I wearing?
exactly. And I think that has a lot to do with maybe the restrictiveness of how, maybe they're living their lives with that self-consciousness, which is, man, it's like everybody's growing up with that, the being kind of tarnished by the brush of fame, right?
Yes.
That thing of that self-consciousness that you have when you grow up with fame. It's like every kid, because it's applicable to like, you know, everyone in even tiny communities. That those images,
Yes.
that experience can be shared with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, for better or worse. I mean, the nice side is the connectedness and like, oh, that's so fun to share the humor and cleverness and thoughts and all of these things. But yeah, it's just like everyone's sort of like performing. I mean, my kids sort of they have it in their own way a little bit. I mean, they're not like heavily online, and also it is a career, so that's fine if someone did that. But yeah, it still would be in their minds, like how they look.
It's
What do
all
they have to give? What do they have to say? Are you do you have a dance? Or are you funny? Or are you clever? Or do you just look hot? Or are you selling something? It's like crazy.
it is kind of crazy. I guess it's just like that eye always looking back at yourself, you
Mhm.
know? Even like, I don't know if you find this, but like, I grew up being looked at and I still second guess myself and like, oh, I shouldn't put that out. Or, like
Yeah.
you and I come on here with like no makeup on. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
there is a consideration of judgment and I guess maybe at this stage of the game we're just like whatever, this is the way I am.
No, the way I think is like, you can't win them all. Like some outfits are gonna look good, some my tummy is sticking out, some I'm just like, just give yourself a break. Like you can't like be 10 out of 10 like every time you have something online or
Unless
public.
you've
Like,
got hair, makeup,
yeah,
stylist, unless you've got a full glam team,
yeah,
which is really costly and exhausting. Like I look at my friends or young girls that I mentor and I see them out in the world at like fashion month, or
yeah,
whatever it is, right? And I'm like, I know how exhausting that is,
yeah,
or even watching, Demi going through her Oscar campaign, the
yeah.
amount of days over the last year where she was in hair and makeup and had to have the
Stressful.
outfit. And,
Yes.
it was like, man,
Work.
being famous is a full-time job.
Oh, that is so much work. And even then, sometimes it's a miss of the outfit or whatever. But yeah, that is full-time work.
And it's a different business. It's a different business than when you were doing it full time and I was doing it full time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's a whole other deal.
I know, because art for us, it was like if you did a fun photo shoot with an amazing photographer, sure, there'd be some a concept and clothes maybe and the makeup artist, but it was for like a specific photo shoot or, or like sure, one night you go out on a red carpet. But yeah, that's full on.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some photos that Sophia Coppola had shot of me for Sophia used to shoot me all the time for her
Yeah, I
editorial.
remember. I
Yeah,
remember.
and
That's so
it
awesome.
was it was like they were only in the magazine.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was in the
It's so
magazine.
nostalgic.
And
Ah,
it wasn't like on social media. Now it's
right.
like, more people, if I do a photo shoot, more people will see it on my social media than in the magazine.
I know. I try to get magazines to look at them again and I'm like, I don't even know how to like look at a magazine anymore.
Oh my God, it's just so fun to rip things out the magazine and like
I
stick it on the
know.
wall and
I
to be able to
know.
look at it for inspiration and ideas and like a real mood board, not a digital
Yes.
mood board, a real
Right.
mood board.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I love that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well,
Tactile.
Um, for anyone who's joined us here, thank you so much. This is my first Substack Live with my beloved dear friend Ione Skye, talking about her new book, which is called Say Everything, but not everything.
Oh no, almost everything. The things I talk about, I'm very disarming and honest, but I didn't say everything, but it's,
But I
you know.
love that title. It's so good.
Oh, oh, thank you.
It's really,
Thank
really good.
you.
And I would love to see you directing something because
Oh,
the film
yeah.
that you directed, where I got to play the lead in it, was so
Yes.
fun. And I'd love to see you directing something with women our age.
Yes, I agree.
I'll come out of acting retirement for you.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm so excited. Now that this book is out, I'm so excited to like move on to a new project, but I love that. I love
Someone is
that.
asking, did you read the audiobook?
I did. I read it and people are really liking it.
Okay, good. Maybe we'll does anyone have any questions for Ione before we log off? Um, Someone's saying, great, they devoured the book in a day. The audiobook was wonderful. Ione reads it.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
that's
Well, this has been
This
so
has been so
fun.
great. I'm so glad that I figured out how to join.
I
This is
know, I am too.
fabulous.
We did it. We did it. And
Excellent.
thank you. And I'm just so excited for people to read your book and to get to know you a little bit, of how I know you and what a wonderful, like, you're just a trailblazer. And I really want
Back
people to
at
know
you.
that about you.
Oh, thank you. Well, back at you. I'm just so excited. I mean, you've been doing so much this whole time too, and now so much. And I'm like, I'm in awe. I've always been in awe of you.
Same, same,
Yeah.
same, same. All right. I love you,
I
Ione.
love you. And
Thanks,
let's
everyone.
do this again.
Okay, we will. We'll do
Now
that.
that we know
When
how.
you and I do a collaboration with you directing, we'll come on here again.
Okay. Yes. Okay, great.
Love you.
All right. Love you.
Bye,
Mwah.
everyone. Thanks for joining.